So just what is the truth about body language and deception during interview and interrogation? Let's find out. Hey, welcome back. Stan Walters again with you on 101 tips for interviewers and interrogators. Tip number 34. So what is the truth about body language and deception when we're conducting your interviewing and interrogation? There's been lots of myth, and it's been around for ever since we started looking at interrogation and deception behaviors. The cornerstone has always been that body language would be the key. Now, the hypothesis was that people in deception would generate lots of cues that they're withholding, or they were locking information out, or they were lying to you. Well, bad news, it didn't work out. Sorry, body language didn't work out like a bad relationship, and that's just about what it is. It's a bad relationship between body language and deception. So let's talk about some of the principles here, what's going on, why we're making this mistake. First of all, body language, you have to remember, is driven predominantly by emotion. It's an emotion-based reaction system. So that's the first thing we need to think of. That's emotion. It's not a cognitive process that creates or causes deception. Second thing we have to remember is that the principle was that people would generate certain sets of cues that were signs of deception. Now, you've heard the myths. Or you may not know they're myths, but some of the things that I've said were deception cues, for example, with breaks in eye contact. Look a little later in one of my other episodes of 101 Tips, and you'll find where we talked about in detail where breaks in eye contact or eye movement have been proven empirically not to be reliable signs of deception. But other body language cues. How often have you heard crossing the arms or legs means a person is being deceptive? Or they're fidgeting in the chair, or they're grooming a lot, or playing with their clothing, or they're fidgeting with their hands, or brushing hair, lint, fiber, cat hair, and all that kind of stuff, playing with zippers and buttons and jackets. That's just the noise of behavior. None of it, under empirical evidence and study, has been shown to have any association with deception. So if you're getting that in interview and interrogation class, you have somebody who's responsible for perpetuating those myths, and that's what's causing us to make a misinterpretation deception. Interesting, a body of research, I believe one of the researchers was Albert Vrij of the Netherlands, was testing body language and deception. And he discovered one thing, is that people do not commit the stereotypical signs of nervous behavior when being deceptive. And it appears because the deceptive process creates a great deal of what we call cognitive load. We're going to deal with that in very few episodes coming up here in the future. That's why you need to subscribe so you won't miss this one. Cognitive load is an increase in the thinking process. So what they did is set an experiment that would cause people to be in a very heavy mental process, a long algebraic equation, for example, and then deception. They found in both cases that the body language went silent. Did you get that? The body language was shutting down, not an increase in body language, which is totally contradictory to what has been taught for years about body language and deception, and that was the be-all and end-all. Now, I'm not excluding body language. I'll come to that in just a moment. Albert Moravian years ago was looking at how people communicate, and when people were unsure of the person they were listening to, it's whether the person believed it or not, they would default from the cognitive to the body to see if there was an agreement. And that's what Ekman looked at in his work on microexpressions. He found that there are 7 emotional expressions that people are unable to falsify. And he found emotions are hard to falsify. But what he was looking at was behaviors of dislike or like behavior in emotional context, and when there was contradictions between the voice and the body. Between the voice and the body. So when the person's discussing their attitudes or their beliefs, and if the body does not match the speech, that's the sign that you may be having deception, they're being dishonest about their emotion. So if you're looking at body language, and it found that people who were focusing, other research focusing a lot on body language as a cue for spotting deception, had a very, very high error rate in spotting deception, running at many times below 50%. And watching body language only created a real strong problem with confirmation bias, which we call preconception. So by watching the body, misdiagnosing the body language, we were assuming people were being deceptive, and anything else they said we didn't hear. Confirmation bias. So body language is good for reading emotion. Now, I need that for picking up reaction. particularly when they're anger and depression, for example, because it gives me tips as the interviewer. I need to change my tactics. I need to change my approach and use smart practices to overcome those emotional reactions. Various studies showed, and others showing, that your best bet is to defer to the speech. It's more reliable and more accurate, particularly in police practice. In interviewing and interrogation, listen to the verbal behaviors. Now, be sure, please hit the like button below. That's the only way I can get this out. Right down below, down here on the side, right down there, please punch the like button for me so I can get this out to more folks, raises the ranking of the videos so it can be out to them. Please subscribe here. Up in the corner, you'll see that. Subscribe to the rest of the series. I've got more research, more tips coming. Remember, there's 101 of these that are on the way, and we only got to number 34. Now, I also have a on-demand course, The Truth About Body Language and Deception. Take a look here at the link to my side. That link will take you to that page where you can do a 1-hour study, online study, at a great price, looking at body language and deception. So until then, we're back with tip number 35. Be safe. Thanks for joining me.